If you've ever been betrayed by the person you trusted most, then this story is for you. Before we begin, take a deep breath. Wherever you are, in your bed, on your balcony, or on a late-night bus, let me tell you the story of a woman who learned to rise from her own pain. Where are you listening from? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. The rain wouldn't stop. It fell lightly on Charleston, like a blessing no one needed. The kind of persistent rain that makes a silk dress cling to the skin, makes mascara run. But no one dared to complain, because today was Sophia's wedding. Inside the Belvedere mansion, crystal chandeliers blazed like a galaxy trapped within four walls. The air was thick with perfume, champagne, and envy, skillfully hidden beneath smiles. Laughter rang out like porcelain striking porcelain, beautiful but fragile. At the end of the hall, Eleanor Vance stood silently by the window, her silver hair in a neat bun, her posture straight, her gaze as still as a lake before a storm. She smiled, a smile just polite enough, but no one knew that behind that gaze was a cold, terrifying observation. Julian Croft, the groom, raised his glass and approached her. "Mother-in-law," he said, his southern voice sweet and clever. "I'd like to offer you a drink, to the future, and to our family's assets." The table laughed merrily. Eleanor held her smile, replying slowly, "To the future." Her voice was as light as the wind, but her eyes were as sharp as a razor. The violin swelled. Sophia, radiant in her white wedding dress, rested her head on Julian's shoulder. Her eyes filled with trust. She didn't know that in that very moment, the first crack had appeared in their seemingly perfect marriage. Eleanor watched her son-in-law's every gesture. The way he smiled. The way he raised his glass. The way his hand brushed against the gold cufflinks engraved with JC. It wasn't the touch of a lover, but the touch of one accustomed to possession. As the crowd moved to the dance floor, Eleanor remained standing. The rain poured outside, long streaks on the glass reflecting her thoughts. From where she stood, she saw Julian, the smile still on his lips, but his eyes had strayed. He left the group of guests, walking quickly towards the study, where the safe was, a safe that only Eleanor and her late husband had ever opened. A minute later, Julian returned, hair neat, smile perfect, as if he'd never left. But his eyes flickered, just one glance, towards the old oak cabinet by the stairs. Eleanor saw it. She always saw. She took a sip of wine, her lips curling into a thin line. Not a smile of joy, but of someone who had just confirmed her intuition was correct. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Eleanor whispered, just loud enough for herself to hear, "Some men don't marry for love. They marry for access." Chapter 2. The Sweet Offer. The next morning, Charleston was still drenched in rain. Weak light crept through the window, reflecting on the old wooden table where Eleanor sat. In front of her was a cold cup of tea, a fragile wisp of steam rising and dissolving into the air, just like every belief she had ever placed in others. A knock came at the door. 3 knocks, even and cautious. Eleanor didn't turn around. The door is unlocked. The door opened, revealing Julian Croft in a perfect gray suit. With him was a strange middle-aged man, white shirt, black tie, a lawyer's face, smooth, alert, and devoid of emotion. Julian smiled, the kind of smile that made people trust him, except those who knew life too well. "I apologize for coming so early, Mother, but I have something to discuss. Something important for our family's future." Eleanor set her teacup down, looked up, her voice calm. Our family? Julian faltered slightly, but continued. Yes, Sophia and I have discussed. We want to create a family trust, a long-term investment fund where all assets are managed jointly. Safe, transparent, and profitable. The man beside him nodded slightly, pulling a stack of papers from his leather briefcase. I am Mr. Lewis, a financial attorney. This project has been thoroughly advised. If you wish, I can explain in detail how it works. Eleanor cut him off, her voice still as light as a breeze. That won't be necessary. I understand all too well how these family trusts operate. She stood up, walked slowly to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked garden. In the glass, Julian's reflection, standing straight, rigid, his eyes still trying to maintain composure. Julian, she said, without turning back. My son once set up such a trust. But he did it to protect his wife, not to control her. The air grew thick. Julian pursed his lips, then forced a smile. I understand. I just thought, after Father passed, you might feel more secure if everything was professionally managed. I just want to help. Eleanor turned, looking him straight in the eye. If you truly wanted to help, why did you bring a lawyer before asking my opinion? Julian gave a thin smile, but his eyes flashed with annoyance. I just wanted everything to be clear, to avoid misunderstandings. Eleanor cut him off a second time, her voice a degree colder. Then understand this. Money is never what binds a family. Sophia entered at that moment, her hair still damp, her eyes sparkling with hope. Mother, I think it's a good idea. Julian just wants everything to be safe. I trust him. Eleanor was silent for a few seconds, then smiled. Who you trust is your business. Julian took Sophia's hand, his gaze softening. Thank you, darling. I just want to take care of our family's future. Eleanor quietly turned away, hiding her smile in her teacup. In that moment, she saw again the image of her late husband, a man who had once warned her, money is only safe when you know how to make others underestimate it. When Julian and the lawyer left, the room was filled only with the sound of rain tapping against the glass. Sophia turned to her mother, her voice soft. Mother, I know you don't like financial matters, but this is a new era. I want everything to be transparent, so no one has to worry. Eleanor nodded, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Transparency is a good thing, if you know exactly who is holding the light. Sophia looked puzzled, not understanding. But Eleanor just gazed outside, where raindrops streamed down the glass like meaningless numbers. Evening fell. Charleston was awash in gray-silver twilight. Eleanor sat alone in her study, in front of the old safe. She opened it. Inside was a check for $7 million, an asset no one knew about, except for her and her husband's loyal lawyer, Arthur Hale. She picked up the phone, dialing a familiar number. A man's voice, deep and calm, answered, Mrs. Eleanor, it's been a long time. Is something wrong? Eleanor looked at the check, her lips curling slightly. Arthur, it's time. Time for what? Time to test a man's heart. Chapter 3. The financial trap. Monday morning, Charleston was damp again. On the oak desk in her study, Eleanor arranged folders. Light from the window streamed in, pooling on the desk. Soft but cold, like the light in an interrogation room. A cup of Earl Grey tea was still steaming. Beside it, a white sheet of paper with only a few handwritten words. Start with $240,000. Arthur Hale arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. A man in his 60s with silver hair, tall, a composed face. No one else retained the old-fashioned manner as he did, cautious, loyal, and always understanding her before she finished speaking. "Has he made a move yet?" Eleanor asked, her eyes fixed on the laptop screen. Arthur opened his briefcase, taking out an envelope. "Julian has had someone looking into your investment accounts. A friend at the bank informed me." Eleanor nodded slightly. "Just as we predicted." She turned the screen towards him. An Excel sheet was open, filled with numbers. "Arthur, we are going to create a new financial picture. Not poor enough to be pitied, but weak enough to make him impatient." Arthur frowned. "You're going to falsify records?" Eleanor sipped her tea. "Not falsify, just stage. We let him see what we want him to believe." The two began to work. The sound of typing mixed with the rain outside. Documents were recreated, investments adjusted. Arthur mixed real and fake numbers. Stock assets reduced from $2.3 million to $240,000 savings fund. Accidentally transferred to the wrong bank. Fake debt record, a personal loan of $150,000 from 2019, still outstanding. Every detail was meticulously edited to the point that no one could detect the setup without knowing the source. Eleanor sat still, her eyes following the cursor. She spoke slowly, clearly. "Julian doesn't believe in emotions. He only believes in data. In that case, we will give him the data he wants." Arthur paused, looking up at her. "Are you sure? If Sophia finds out—" "She will," Eleanor interrupted, her voice soft but firm. "But not now. She needs to see the true face of the man she chose." She leaned back in her chair, looking at the ceiling. The cold white light reflected on her time-worn skin, but her eyes were still clear and alarmingly alert. "A long time ago, my husband used to say." She smiled faintly. "Money is only safe when you make others underestimate it." Arthur nodded, continuing his work. By noon, the room smelled of new paper, printer ink, and cold coffee. Eleanor stood up, walked to the filing cabinet, and pulled out the third drawer from the bottom, where she kept all the original documents, organized in her own system that only she understood. She took out a real file, flipped through a few pages, and put it back. Everything was neat, clean, just like how she faced life, never letting others see her mess. Not even in sorrow. Evening fell. Arthur packed up his laptop, handing her a small USB drive. "It's all ready. I've made 3 backups. One in my safe at home, one at the bank, and one for you." Eleanor took it, her eyes quiet. "Thank you, Arthur. You always understand me." He nodded. "He will believe it, because he wants to believe it." Eleanor smiled. "Exactly. Greed makes people blind." When Arthur left, the room fell silent. Eleanor sat alone. Outside, the sunset slid down the raindrops on the glass, like invisible words. She opened her laptop, sending a simple email. To Sophia Croft. Subject: Tea this afternoon. "Stop by for a bit, dear. I have a few things I need your help with." Late afternoon, Sophia arrived. She smiled, kissing her mother's cheek lightly. "You look tired, Mom. Staying up late again?" Eleanor shook her head, pouring tea. "No, just organizing some paperwork." "Can you look over this file for me?" She placed a stack of files in front of Sophia, the fake files. The numbers were so clever, so plausible, that even Sophia believed them. Sophia flipped through a few pages, her eyes showing worry. "Mom, is this your account? Why is there only $240,000 left? What about Dad's investment fund?" Eleanor smiled faintly, her eyes distant. "Your father used to say, having too much money doesn't bring peace. I just want to live simply." Sophia took her mother's hand, her voice choked. "I don't want you to live in hardship." Eleanor squeezed her daughter's hand gently, her smile calm. Hardship isn't scary, Sophia. Trusting the wrong person. That's what's scary. When Sophia left, Eleanor remained in the warm, lamplit room. She looked at the file on the desk. A perfect camouflage. Beneath the thin veneer of weakness, a chess game had been set, and the one who made the first move was not Julian. Chapter 4. The Santorini Code. 4 days after the wedding, it rained again in Charleston. Eleanor stood on the porch, watching the rainwater flow through her fingers, wondering if the sky was clearer somewhere else. On her desk, the Santorini postcard Sophia had sent arrived this morning. The back had only a few lines of round, cheerful handwriting. "Mom, this place is beautiful, like a painting. Julian said I would love the Greek sun, and I really do." She put the card down. No smile, no sadness, just a long moment of silence. In the afternoon, Arthur entered, his raincoat still dripping. "There's news," he said, placing his laptop on the table. Eleanor nodded, slowly cleaning her glasses with an old handkerchief. Arthur opened the screen. A chart showed strange access logs from abroad, an IP originating from Santorini, Greece. 3 a.m. yesterday, someone tried to log into the decoy account you set up, he said, his voice even. Eleanor said nothing, just tilted her head, her eyes fixed on the flashing numbers on the screen. How many attempts? 4. All were blocked at the second authentication layer. But he's smart enough not to try again with the same device. Eleanor pursed her lips. Julian Croft never gets his own hands dirty. He hires people. Arthur nodded. I checked. The IP traces back to a private weekly rental villa. The tenant's name is Louis Carrington, an American financial consultant. Eleanor tapped her chin lightly. The name sounds borrowed. Arthur pressed a key, and the screen switched to a satellite map. A red dot blinked among the white roofs of Santorini, a small, bright spot in the blue Aegean Sea. She stared at it. Her voice was low, slow. So, he took the bait. That night, Eleanor didn't sleep. The ticking of the clock mixed with the sound of rain on the porch. On the laptop screen, access logs updated continuously. Each line of data appeared like the heartbeat of a hunt. Rain in Charleston. Sun in Santorini, a distance of 8,000 kilometers, but in the world of information, only a click apart. She sent a short text to Arthur. Don't block him. Let him think he's close to succeeding. 2 days later, Sophia called. Her daughter's voice was full of excitement. Mom, we watched the sunset in Oya today. It's so beautiful. I want to stay here forever. Eleanor smiled. Enjoy it, my love. Then she asked softly, Did Julian bring his laptop? Of course, Mom. He works even on vacation, you know him. Sophia laughed. Eleanor laughed too, but in her laugh, there was something as quiet as a lake's surface. After the call, she looked at the Santorini postcard again. The Greek sun was dazzlingly bright, and behind it, cold numbers were rewriting the map of trust. That evening, Arthur sent Eleanor a log file. New movement. He tried to transfer money, a small amount, just $2,000, from the decoy account to an e-wallet. The purpose is clearly to test security. Eleanor sat down, opening the file. The blue light from the screen illuminated her face, highlighting her fine but strong features. Like a fox testing the hen house, she said, her voice low. And we'll let him think the eggs are still there. Arthur looked at her, nodding slightly. What do you want me to do next? Set a silent alert, she replied. No blocks, no reports. When he transfers again, we'll know the exact destination account. 3 days later, an alert email flashed at 2 a.m. Arthur was asleep when his phone vibrated. The text from Eleanor had only 2 words: "He's back." Arthur turned on his computer, logging into the system. This time, Julian, or his man, had succeeded past step 2. A transfer of $50,000 was executed, but instead of going to a real wallet, Eleanor had set up a mirror layer. The transaction was only successful on the interface. It never left the real account. Eleanor sat there, watching the transfer completed notification appear, without saying a word. A fleeting smile crossed her lips. The next morning, the first text from Sophia. "Mom, Julian is acting strange. He woke up early, went outside to take a call. When I asked, he said it was work." Eleanor only replied, "Don't ask more. Just observe." On Saturday night, Arthur received an urgent email. Subject: Red Hand. The message included only a new IP coordinate, still from Santorini, but this time originating directly from Julian Croft's device. Arthur came to Eleanor's house in the middle of the night. They both stared at the data stream. Julian was sitting in the villa, using his own laptop to access the system he thought he had fooled. Greed, Eleanor said, made him forget caution. Arthur smiled. And that very confidence will be his undoing. They were silent for a long moment. Outside, the Charleston rain mixed with the sound of the ocean wind, picked up by the security camera's audio feed. Eleanor stood up, walking slowly to her desk. She took out a black hard drive, plugging it into the machine. "Arthur," she said quietly, "we will save all of it. The access logs, IPs, times, transactions. He can erase his tracks, but he can't erase data that's already been copied." Arthur nodded. "Digital evidence. No one escapes it." She smiled faintly. "We don't need a court. We just need light." On the screen, the security feed from the Santorini villa was still active. A blurry but clear angle. Julian sat in front of the laptop, his face cold, his eyes fixed on the bright screen. The light reflected off the watch on his wrist, the watch Eleanor had given him at their wedding. Eleanor looked at the image for a long time. No hatred, no anger, just a quiet weariness, like someone who had seen the same old play repeated one more time. As the screen faded, she said softly, "He just locked his own door. And he doesn't know that the key has been in my hand all along." Outside, the rain fell again. A cold Charleston, a perfect contrast to the golden sun of Santorini. 2 halves of the world touching through a network cable. A marriage that began with false love was now about to end with a true code. Chapter 5. The Crack, the 8th morning in Santorini. Sophia opened her eyes, golden sunlight streaming through the white curtains. The villa was filled with the scent of lavender and sea salt. Julian was at his laptop, his face intent, his hands moving quickly as if the whole world was waiting for him to type a command. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice sleepy. Julian looked up, a smile instantly appearing, like a reflex. "Just checking some contracts." "Go back to sleep, honey." Sophia nodded, but her eyes lingered on the screen. A bank transaction window flashed briefly, then disappeared as Julian closed the laptop. Her heart beat a little faster. In Charleston, Eleanor stood by the window holding her phone. On the screen were the words, "Julian is acting strange, Mom." She read the message over and over, then typed a short reply. "Don't ask. Don't speak. Just observe." That afternoon, as the Santorini sun burned fiery red, Sophia walked alone along the white stone path. Her mother's voice echoed in her head, slow, cold, and always right. Trusting the wrong person. That's what's scary. She remembered the times Julian had been evasive, the late-night calls, the quick, calculating glances. Could it be that her mother had seen it all? She returned to the villa. Julian was on the phone, his voice low and tense. Seeing her enter, he immediately smiled. "You're back. I was just booking a table for tonight, that restaurant on the cliff." Sophia nodded slightly, but inside her, there was a very small crack, just big enough for the light to get in. That night, Eleanor received a call from Arthur. "There's movement. He's stopped trying to log in. It means he believes he succeeded." "Leave it," Eleanor replied, her eyes on the backyard. The yellow light cast shadows on her face, accentuating the fine lines of time. She sat at her desk, writing a letter. Not to be sent, just for herself. "Perhaps people will blame me, but sometimes, to protect your child, you have to let them hurt. Because only in pain will they see who is truly sincere." In Santorini, dinner was quiet. The wind blew hard, the tablecloth flapping. Sophia looked at Julian, the man who had once made her believe she was his entire world. Now, in the flickering candlelight, he seemed like a stranger. "Julian," she said slowly, "are you hiding something from me?" He laughed, pouring wine, his voice sweet as honey. "Hiding something? No, I'm just hiding a surprise." "What surprise?" Julian looked at her, a cold flash in his eyes. "I'm preparing a plan for our future. When it's complete, you'll understand why I had to do it." She nodded, but a chill ran down her spine. For the first time, she didn't believe him. Night. She stepped onto the balcony, looking at the dark, vast sea. The cold wind hit her face and tears fell with it. She texted her mother, "If you know something, please, tell me." In Charleston, Eleanor read the message in the middle of the night. She started to reply, but stopped. Her hand froze over the screen, and she put the phone down. Sometimes, silence is the only way to let your child grow. The next morning, Sophia discovered Julian had forgotten to lock his laptop. She only meant to open it to turn off the music, but the screen showed a banking website. She read every line. Attempted transfer, 50,000 USD status, failed. Error code, mirror response. At the bottom was the email address evance@charlestonmail.com. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded. Vance, Yim Julian walked in, and everything froze. They looked at each other. Sophia's eyes wet, Julian's eyes dark and dangerous. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice low. Sophia stepped back. You're trying to take my mother's money?" Julian didn't answer right away. Then he laughed. "Your mother's? Did you really think I married you just for love?" She took another step back, tears streaming. "What are you saying?" Julian moved closer, his voice hard as steel. "I love you. But love doesn't pay the bills, Sophia. I'm just taking what I deserve." "Deserve?" she screamed. "By betraying the person who trusted you most?" He was silent, his eyes cold. Sometimes, betrayal is the first step to survival. Sophia broke down, crying. She grabbed her phone, hitting video call for her mother. Eleanor answered. Her face appeared, calm, bright, cold. "You were right," she whispered. "He didn't marry for love." Sophia choked on her words. "Mom, you knew from the beginning?" "Yes." "Then why didn't you say something sooner?" Eleanor closed her eyes briefly. "Because if I had told you, you wouldn't have believed me. Now, you have seen it with your own eyes." Julian snatched the phone, ending the call. He threw it on the bed, looking at Sophia with a mix of anger and desperation. "You will regret siding with her." She didn't answer. She just packed her bag, her hands shaking. "No, Julian. For the first time in my life, I don't regret trusting my mother. That evening, Sophia left the villa in a sudden Greek rainstorm. The raindrops fell like shards of broken trust. She didn't know where she would go. She only knew that if she stayed, her heart would turn to stone. In Charleston, Eleanor sat in the dark, watching the network map on her screen display connection lost. She knew her daughter had woken from the dream, but the tears still fell, not because she hated Julian, but because every mother hurts when she watches her child grow up through an injury. Chapter 6. The undeniable proof morning in Charleston. The sky after the rain was unnaturally clear. Eleanor sat in her study, the early sun filtering through the blinds, casting a thin golden veil on her desk. Arthur entered, holding a small hard drive. "You should see this." Eleanor looked at him, silent for a few seconds, then gestured. Arthur plugged the drive into the computer. The familiar video interface appeared. Wedding day main camera move. He spoke slowly, as if weighing every word. This copy was accidentally saved by the secondary film crew, unedited, uncolored. But at the 48-minute mark, after the guests left the table, there's something else. Eleanor nodded slightly. The video played. The image appeared. A radiant scene, melodic music, laughter mixed with clinking glasses. Then the camera panned to the bar, where Julian Croft was pouring himself a drink, his face flushed with alcohol. Beside him were two male friends, one of them laughing loudly. "So, you're officially the winner, Julian." Julian laughed, his voice hoarse, drunk but clear. "Winner? Don't say that. I just married my ticket to the future." The group roared. One asked jokingly, "A golden ticket?" Julian raised his glass, winking. "Not just gold. It's $7 million and a villa overlooking the sea. After the honeymoon, I'll be the one holding the keys." The group laughed even louder. In that laughter, Eleanor heard the coldness of metal striking her heart. Arthur paused the video, looking at her. Nothing more needed to be said. Eleanor took a breath, then said softly, "Send it to Sophia." That afternoon, in Athens, Sophia received an email from her mother. No subject, no message, just a small video file. 48 medium in move. She sat on the hotel bed, her hand trembling as she pressed play. The image appeared, wedding music, laughter, and then Julian's voice. "After the honeymoon, I'll be the one holding the keys." The sentence rang out, clear, undeniable. His voice, his smile, his eyes. It was all unmistakably him. She froze, her heart feeling like it had shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces. All the memories flooded back. The wedding kiss, the vows under the candlelight, the "I love you forever" texts. It all dissolved into sea foam. She looked out the window. Athens was scorching hot this afternoon. The world outside was still beautiful, still brilliant. Only she was falling apart. She sent a message to her mother. "Mom, I saw it." No emoji, no punctuation. Just 3 words, as bare as a blade. In Charleston, Eleanor was making tea when her phone buzzed. She opened the message, reading it slowly. Then she put the phone down, not replying. Arthur sat across from her, speaking quietly. "Do you feel relieved?" Eleanor was silent for a long time. Finally, she answered, her voice as thin as silk. "No one feels relieved watching their child break. But sometimes, the truth is the only bitter medicine that can save someone from a hallucination." Arthur nodded, his eyes full of respect. Night. Sophia opened her hotel room door to see Julian watching TV, his expression casual. She walked over, placing the phone in front of him. "Do you have anything to say?" Julian looked up, seeing the screen paused on his face in the video. They were both silent. The room was filled with the steady, cold, dry hum of the air conditioner. After a moment, Julian gave a small, choked laugh. "You don't understand. It was just a joke. They pressured me to say it." "A joke?" Sophia repeated, tears welling up. "You call marrying me for money a joke?" Julian stood up, grabbing her hand. "I love you, I really do. But you don't understand. I've never had an opportunity like this in my life. You know my background. I had to climb." Sophia pulled her hand away, backing up. "No, Julian, you're not climbing. You're just stepping on other people to get ahead." He was silent. She turned away, wiping her tears. "I used to think that just loving each other was enough. But it turns out love can't change someone's nature." Julian looked at her for a long time. Then he sighed, speaking softly, as if admitting defeat. "Maybe you're right." She didn't answer. She just grabbed her suitcase, pulling it to the door. Before leaving, she turned back, speaking quietly, her voice trembling, but firm. "You didn't just betray my mother. You betrayed the only thing that could have saved you. Trust." When the door closed, Julian sat down on the chair. On the table, a glass of red wine reflected the dim yellow light. He looked at his still-open laptop, the words "access denied" flashing, and in that moment, he knew. He hadn't just lost money, he had lost everything. In Charleston, Eleanor sat in the living room. On the screen, a video call from Sophia. Her daughter's face was gaunt, but her eyes were brighter than before. "Mom," Sophia said, "I'm coming home." Eleanor nodded. "No need to rush. Take a few more days. When your heart is calm, then come back." "You're not mad at me?" She smiled gently, a tired but warm smile. "What is there to be mad about? Everyone needs a fall to learn how to stand up. You've just learned your lesson." After hanging up, Eleanor looked out the window. Charleston was clear tonight. The raindrops lingering on the glass reflected the streetlights like hundreds of silent eyes. She spoke softly, as if to herself. The truth never needs anyone to believe it. It only needs to be seen. Chapter 7. The Mask Falls Charleston Airport, late afternoon. Golden sunlight poured onto the cold metal benches. Sophia walked out of the gate, her hair messy from the long flight. In her hand was only one small suitcase, so light it seemed to hold only clothes, but in reality, it held the entire part of her life she had just let go of. Eleanor was waiting in the arrivals hall. She didn't run up, didn't open her arms for a hug. She just looked at her daughter, her gaze deep and calm, as if she had known this moment would come. When Sophia got closer, Eleanor said softly, "Let's go home. It's about to rain." In the car, no one spoke. The rhythmic sound of the windshield wipers, the engine humming into the silence. Sometimes the silence between two women is louder than any words of comfort. When they got home, Eleanor poured tea, placing it in front of her daughter. "Did you watch the whole video?" "Yes." "Do you hate him?" Sophia looked into the teacup, the fragile steam rising and vanishing. "I don't hate him. I just feel empty. I don't know what was real and what was an act these past few months." Eleanor smiled slightly, but her eyes weren't soft. "You are growing up. That's the feeling when one sees the world without illusions." The doorbell rang. Arthur went to open it, and then returned, nodding slightly to Eleanor. "It's Julian Croft." Sophia startled. Eleanor didn't look at her daughter, just set her teacup down. "Let him in." Julian entered, still in the gray suit, but it was no longer pristine. His face was gaunt, eyes dark-ringed, the silver watch gone from his wrist. "Mrs. Eleanor," he began, his voice hoarse and forced. "I came to talk, not to beg, just to clear things up." Eleanor nodded, her voice composed. "You have 10 minutes." Julian took a deep breath, looking at Sophia. "I was wrong. Let greed blind me. But you have to understand, I never intended to hurt you. I just wanted to be recognized, to stand on equal footing with you and your family." Sophia was silent. Eleanor sat still, her gaze observant, like someone re-watching a play whose lines she already knew by heart. Julian turned to her. "You know how I grew up. With nothing, no opportunities, no network. And you have everything. I just wanted a small piece to get started." Eleanor's lip curled in a cold smile. "Start with lies? You think you're a victim, and I'm the one with surplus money who must save you?" Julian clenched his fists. "You don't understand. All my life I just wanted to prove that I was smart enough, worthy enough." Eleanor cut him off. "Smart? A smart person wouldn't leave an IP trail from Santorini to someone else's bank account. A smart person wouldn't brag about his plan while drunk at his own wedding. You aren't smart, Julian. You're just good at acting." The air in the room thickened. Sophia clutched her hands, tears welling, but she didn't let them fall. Julian panted, his gaze turning to pleading. "Eleanor, you can despise me, but please don't make me an enemy. I have nothing left. Just let me say a few last words to Sophia." Eleanor nodded slightly, turning away. "I won't stop you. But remember that every word you say now is a judgment on yourself." Julian stepped closer to Sophia. His voice dropped, thick with emotion. "Sophia, I can't turn back time. But if I could, I would have chosen to marry you for love, not for the money." Sophia looked at him. Her eyes no longer held pain, only a cold clarity. "No, Julian," she said softly. "You never knew how to love. You only know how to possess." She stood up, taking a step back, her voice shaking but firm. "You taught me one thing. There are people who don't need to stab you in the back. They just need to smile and wait for you to hand them the knife." Julian bowed his head. A single tear rolled down, but no one believed it was real. Eleanor stood, slowly approaching him. She stopped in front of Julian, just close enough to see the fear in his eyes. "Do you know the difference between you and me?" Julian didn't answer. She spoke, her voice low and steady as a final melody. "You see marriage as a transaction. See trust as an asset. Once it's lost, nothing can buy it back." Julian swallowed hard. Eleanor tilted her head, adding softly, "You came here to get your dignity back? I'm sorry. You already sold it for less than the price of a wedding toast." There was nothing left to say. Julian quietly turned. Before walking out the door, he looked back at Sophia one last time. "I'll go. But remember, I was sincere, even if just for a moment," Sophia replied, her voice light as air. "A moment can't save a lifetime, Julian." The door closed. The sound echoed. Dry, sharp, final. An old chapter ended. Arthur emerged from the hallway, looking at Eleanor. "Are you going to sue?" Eleanor shook her head slightly. "There's no need. He has already sentenced himself with his loss. Sometimes the greatest punishment is being forced to live with who you really are." Sophia sat down, breaking into tears, not sobs, just steady, slow tears, like distant chimes. Eleanor went to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Cry. Let it all out. Then you will see. When the fog clears, the light is always there." That night, in the quiet house, Eleanor opened a window. The wind carried the dampness of the sea. She looked into the distance where the city lights blurred in a thin mist, Below, Sophia's silhouette sat silently on the wooden porch swing. No more sobs, just a small, fragile peace, like someone who had just walked through a storm. Eleanor smiled, whispering to herself, "The mask has fallen. All that's left is skin, bare and real." She closed her eyes briefly. In her heart, there was no victory, just the tranquility of someone who had seen it all and still had enough love to forgive. Chapter 8. The Final Meeting. The 14th floor conference room of Henderson and Hale was bright with fluorescent light. The long walnut table was polished to a mirror shine. At the head of the table, Eleanor sat straight, her hands clasped, her gaze calm, as if she already knew the outcome. Across from her, Julian Croft, still in the familiar gray suit, but this time the collar was wrinkled, the tie loose, his face tense. Beside him was his personal lawyer, a young man with shifty eyes behind his glasses. On Eleanor's side, Arthur Hale opened a thick file, placing it neatly on the table. The room was dead silent. The ticking of the wall clock seemed to echo, heavy and cold. "Mrs. Eleanor," Julian's lawyer began, his voice trying to stay calm. "My client believes there has been a misunderstanding. All actions related to your account were due to a technical error. There was no intent to trespass or appropriate." Eleanor listened without blinking. Arthur remained silent, merely uncapping his pen, ready to take notes. "A technical error?" Eleanor repeated, her voice soft as mist, but with a blade hidden in every syllable. "Can you tell me what kind of error matches a login from Santorini to my account 3 times in 1 week?" The young lawyer froze. Julian spoke, his voice hoarse. "I didn't do it directly. I hired an investment consultant. They might have made a mistake." Eleanor tilted her head, smiling faintly. "And your consultant, coincidentally, was also at the same resort as you and your wife during your honeymoon?" Arthur pushed a stack of papers toward them. "These are copies of the IP access data, extracted from the server, all authenticated by an independent cybersecurity specialist." Julian's lawyer picked them up, flipped through a few pages, and inhaled sharply. There was no way out. Eleanor said no more. She poured tea, her movements slow, steady, precise. The faint scent of Earl Grey filled the tense room. "Julian," she spoke, "you are young. You can make mistakes, but there are 2 things an adult never does. First, lie. Second, blame others when caught." Julian clenched his fists, trying to stay calm. "You can despise me, but you can't dissolve my marriage to Sophia with this setup." Eleanor raised an eyebrow, her voice low but resonant. "Dissolve it? Have you forgotten? Sophia is the one who left." Julian was silent. Eleanor continued. "You haven't lost anything because of me, Julian. You just tore off your own mask in front of the very person who trusted you most." Arthur opened his laptop, projecting the wedding video onto the large screen. No music, no sparkling lights, just Julian's voice, hoarse, drunk, and real. "After the honeymoon, I'll be the one holding the keys." The sound filled the conference room. No one spoke. Julian hung his head, his hand trembling slightly. His lawyer sighed, then said in a low voice, "Perhaps. We should negotiate, Mrs. Eleanor, an out-of-court settlement, so neither side is hurt further." Eleanor set her teacup down, the quiet clink echoing like a bell. She looked straight at him, her voice deep and cold. "Do you think I need a court to win?" The lawyer was silent. Eleanor continued, every word clear. "Sometimes, justice doesn't need a courtroom. It just needs light. And today, the light is sufficient." She stood, gathering her files, handing them to Arthur. "Prepare the divorce papers. Sophia will sign. He will waive all claims, including assets, the house, and any inheritance rights." Arthur nodded. Julian looked up, his voice broken. "You want to destroy me?" Eleanor looked at him, her eyes cold but sad. "No, Julian. I just don't save people who intentionally jump off a cliff." She paused, then spoke slowly. "You can keep your dignity if you know how to leave quietly." Julian stood frozen. The light from the window slanted across his face, revealing a once handsome face, now etched with fatigue and failure. The meeting ended. The room slowly emptied. Only Eleanor remained, standing by the window, watching her reflection in the glass. Her face was calm, not happy, not in pain, just the peace of someone who knew she had finished a war without losing herself. Arthur approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You know, Eleanor, in 30 years of practicing law, I've never seen anyone win a case without a court." She smiled faintly, her voice thin as breath. "That's because they think justice is in the verdict. I believe it's in how we shine a light on the truth." Arthur nodded, saying no more. Leaving the building, the Charleston wind blew hard, carrying the distant smell of rain from the coast. Eleanor stood on the steps, watching the hurried crowd. She opened her phone, a text from Sophia. "I'm coming home soon. Mom, I want to sign the papers myself." Eleanor smiled, a rare smile. Not of victory, not of triumph, just the relief of setting down a heavy burden. She looked up at the pale gray sky, the drifting clouds. Her voice was low, like a monologue to herself. "Justice doesn't come from the law. It comes from the moment we dare to look straight at what we fear most, and not bow our heads." Chapter 9. The truth revealed. The seasons were changing in Charleston. The old oaks on the porch turned yellow, the wind blowing gently through the window, carrying the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. In the quiet house, the dining table was set for only two. Eleanor poured white wine, her movements slow and precise. Sophia sat opposite, watching the flickering candlelight, her hand unconsciously twisting the wedding ring she had removed. For the first time since everything happened, they sat together without needing explanations. Only silence. But it was a breathable silence. "Mom," Sophia said softly, her voice still tired. Is it really over?" Eleanor nodded. "Yes. Julian signed. He won't be back." Sophia sighed, burying her face in her hands. "I still don't understand how you knew everything, and why you had to endure it in silence." Eleanor smiled, a gentle but slightly bitter smile. "Because sometimes, silence is the only way to keep the truth whole. If I had spoken sooner, you would have thought I was jealous or controlling. But when you see it for yourself, you will never forget." Sophia bit her lip, tears brimming. "I've disappointed you so much, haven't I?" Eleanor shook her head. "No, Sophia. On the contrary, I'm proud of you for daring to open your eyes, for daring to hurt in order to understand. Pain is the price of maturity." The wind outside rustled the white curtains. The candlelight reflected on Eleanor's face, making her look both resolute and gentle. She stood, walked to the oak cabinet, and opened the third drawer, where the secrets of a lifetime were kept. She took out an old leather envelope, faded with time, and placed it on the table. "This is what I kept from you." Sophia looked at the envelope, her heart pounding. "What is it, Mom?" "It's your father's inheritance. $7 million. The room fell silent. Sophia froze, her eyes wide. "Mom, what did you say?" Eleanor smiled, a light but sad smile. Your father left that money when he passed. He wanted you to have it, but I held it back. Not out of greed, but because I knew if you received it before you were strong enough, it would kill you before it helped you. She sat down, looking deep into her daughter's eyes. You know, money is a strange thing. It can save people, but it can also turn them into someone else. Your father once taught me, hide your wealth until you know who truly sees you and not just your money. I kept that promise for 20 years. Sophia trembled slightly. So, you tested Julian to see if he really loved me? Eleanor nodded. Yes, and he chose the easiest path, the path of someone who wants to possess, not to understand. Sophia's tears fell, but this time, without choking. She took her mother's hand, her small hand fitting warmly, truly, in Eleanor's. Mom, she whispered, so what will you do with that money now? Eleanor looked out the window, where the moonlight reflected on the still lake. I don't need that much. A portion will be for you, not to spend, but for you to learn how to keep. The rest, I will establish the Eleanor Vance Fund, a fund to help middle-aged women restart their lives after a breakdown. Sophia looked up, moved. You'll help them? Just like you helped yourself? Eleanor nodded slightly. Women sometimes don't need saving. They just need a hand to help them stand up, to remember they still have value. They sat in silence for a long time. The night outside softened, the wind making the candle flicker. Sophia said softly, Mom, I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Eleanor looked at her daughter, smiling. It's not your fault. People only doubt those they love because they're afraid of losing the image they hold in their hearts. I understand. After dinner, the two women went out onto the balcony. Charleston was peaceful tonight, the water in the harbor shining silver. The faint sound of jazz drifted from a bar down the street, soft and sad. Sophia rested her head on her mother's shoulder, whispering, Mom, I'm afraid I'll trust the wrong person again. Eleanor stroked her hair, her voice light as the wind. It's okay. Trusting wrong is a part of living. Just don't stop trusting. She smiled faintly through her tears. I understand now. Your real asset. It wasn't the money. Eleanor looked at her, her eyes shining with peace after a lifetime of storms. That's right. The real asset is clarity and trust. When placed in the right person, they were silent, watching the moonlight shatter on the sea like thousands of broken mirror pieces reflecting themselves. But this time, it didn't hurt. Because sometimes, to find peace, you must let the truth shine in, even if it tears you apart. Only then is the light truly yours. Chapter 10. The real asset dawn over the Charleston harbor. The sun had just risen above the horizon, the light soft as silk on the dew-covered water. Seagulls skimmed the waves, their soft cries like a gentle awakening. Eleanor stood by the railing, wearing a light gray cardigan, her silver hair catching the early golden light. Beside her, Sophia was quiet, holding a string-bound file. False assets. The papers that had been the bait, the plan, the start of a long chess game. Now they were just a meaningless pile of paper. Are you ready? Eleanor asked, her voice light as the breeze. Sophia nodded. Eleanor opened the lid of a small, portable incinerator placed at the edge of the dock. A blue flame flickered, reflecting on the metal. One by one, Eleanor dropped the papers into the fire. The flames consumed them, slowly, as if erasing every trace of the old lies. Black ink turned to gray ash, rising to mix with the wind. Sophia watched, her eyes reflecting the orange glow. "It's strange," she said. "You're not angry, not hateful, just calm, as if this was all preordained." Eleanor smiled faintly. "Anger and hatred are burdens, my child. Smart people choose to let go at the right time, to make room for peace to enter." She bent down, using metal tongs to push the last paper into the flames. Papers, accounts, signatures. It's all just formality. The most valuable thing isn't in a safe, but in our ability to keep ourselves in the midst of temptation. The early morning breeze blew lightly, rustling Sophia's hair. She looked at her mother, her voice low. "Now I understand. The real asset you spoke of wasn't money." Eleanor looked at her, her eyes warm. "No, the real asset is the one thing no one can take from you: clarity and trust, when it is given to the right person." Sophia smiled, her first smile after many long, closed-off days. "Mom, I think I'm ready to start over." "Go ahead, Sophia," Eleanor replied. "But don't start with fear. Start with understanding." Mother and daughter walked along the harbor. The water sparkled like a mirror, reflecting their silhouettes, one old, one young, walking side by side, between two generations, between past and present, between loss and rebirth. The first fishermen were preparing their boats, the sound of oars dipping in the water mixing with the wind, creating the softest sound Eleanor had ever heard. She spoke softly, as if to herself. "Your father once asked me, if one day I lost all the money, would I be afraid? I said no, because what I hold, no one can buy." Sophia turned. "What is that?" Eleanor smiled, her eyes distant. "It's freedom. Freedom from the fear of poverty, from the obsession with loss, from needing someone else's love to feel my own worth." They stopped by the railing. The sun was higher now, the light reflecting on the water like thousands of pieces of molten gold. Sophia rested her hands on the wooden rail, speaking softly. "Mom, if one day I'm betrayed again, what do you think I should do?" Eleanor replied, her voice serene. "You can't avoid betrayal, but you can learn not to be broken by it. Betrayal doesn't define who you are. It only shows you who doesn't deserve to stay." Sophia smiled, a smile so clear and resilient. "Now I truly understand. You didn't defeat Julian with power. You defeated him by not letting him turn you into someone like him." Eleanor smiled faintly, her eyes shining with quiet pride. "Exactly." The distant church bells chimed 7. The city was waking up. On the water, the ashes from the old papers drifted, mixing with the morning mist, and then vanished without a trace. Sophia watched them go, her voice trembling but warm. "It's all really over, isn't it, Mom?" Eleanor nodded. "No, my love. It's not over. It's just beginning again. But this time, with a heart that knows how to choose." They walked back home. Charleston was radiant in the morning sun. On the path, fallen oak leaves rustled under the feet of two women, 2 generations, 2 journeys, sharing one simple truth: that the real asset isn't kept in a safe, but in the ability to walk through darkness without losing one's own light. That morning, Eleanor wrote the last line in her journal. "I have lived long enough to know power, money, and love can all be lost, but dignity cannot. And only when we keep our dignity are we truly wealthy." She closed the book, placed it on the table, and turned to the window. Outside, the sun was fully risen, brilliant and gentle. The light streamed through the curtain, touching her face, serene, free, and completely liberated.